Well, greetings and thanks for joining us today for the 93rd episode of Light Bulb Moments, a weekly financial roundtable. Remember, money's not the most important thing in life, but it is reasonably close to oxygen on the gotta have it scale. I'm Tom Kuhn. I'm CEO of Qnity, as well as CEO of Qnity for Schools and Beauty Changes Lives board member. I'm here as your host. At Qnity, we are here to help things go from complicated, overwhelming, and confusing to a clear path towards greater prosperity, using the new rules of engagement, simple, visual, and actionable. Reminder, Qnity really is here to create a better financial wellness for pro beauty, whether it's students, employers, leaders, employees. But the first thing I'm going to lead with is just a reminder on the compensation study. We are open. Data submission is open. We do need you to participate in the study. The more people participate, the more valid and more beneficial the results are for everybody, including those you participate. So if you have not already entered your contact information, use this QR code. What that simply will do, it'll allow you to enter contact information for your business. And that will automatically trigger getting a confidentiality agreement to you. Setting up a data submission sheet for you. And so it's real simple and easy to get going, but please do it sooner rather than later. We have a very compressed time frame to do this very important study so that we can change the narrative about earnings in pro beauty and stop reading these ridiculous things that tell just part of the story, like pro beauty is the poverty of cosmetology earnings, overworked, underpaid, where we all believe that this is an extremely prosperous career in beauty, but we need data to prove it. Not only will you help us change the narrative, but you'll also get a robust report, which otherwise there'd be a fee for. So to participate in this, you also get some great information that's going to help you recruit and retain staff, and then also take a look at your business model and see what others are doing too for some comparison. We've had some great guests in recent weeks. Last week we had Debbie Marr, who talked about leadership and then also talked about the restaurant industry, parallels, lessons, recruiting tips, etc. Great session by Debbie. 2 weeks ago, we had Diane Stevens of Cole Stevens Salon in DC, and a member of the think tank for the compensation study. And then 3 weeks ago, or 3 sessions ago, we had Van Council, and he, of course, always inspires and comes prepared with some great stuff. All of these previous sessions are on YouTube. Check them out. If you're joining us today live, that's great. If you're watching the recording, thanks for being with us today. We have a couple of great guests today. We have 2 guests, not just one. We have Carrie Perkins. We're going to invite her into the conversation and check in with her. She has some recent lessons that I think will speak to all of you. So we're super excited to bring Carrie, who was and continues to be a core member of the Qnity family. Then we're also going to introduce you to Myra Reddy, of PBA, who is figuratively and literally the voice of the professional beauty industry. And many of you don't know Myra. I've known her for many years, and I realized, oh my gosh, everybody needs to know Myra because she's on the front line on behalf of all of us. Myra, good morning.
Good morning.
We are catching you on the earlier end of your day, given your 2-hour time change from us. So thanks for an early morning meeting. How are you this morning?
I'm doing well, thank you. Thanks for having me. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. And I reflected last night after our conversation yesterday, you're really a voice for pro beauty, and most people don't even know who you are. And I'm like,
I would agree.
So part of what I'm honored to do is allow people to meet Myra today. So let's talk a little bit about Myra, the person, okay, before we get into your job and all of that. So you're based down in Arizona because you're part of PBA.
Yes, we are headquartered in Scottsdale, Arizona, which has plenty of salons, almost on every corner, just as golf courses too.
And you tell us a little bit about your background, kind of take us back to how you started your career and then where you ended up now. So just take a couple minutes to give us a quick summary.
Sure. I moved from Texas to Arizona after completing my graduate program. I've worked for elected officials, both at the state and the federal level, since about 1997. I joined the Chamber of Commerce and did some lobbying upon my move to Arizona, and then moved over to PBA 12 years ago. So I've been here now for 12 years.
And you stepped into a role where, I mean, it was like a brand new position or department or role. Is that right?
Right. Government affairs for PBA was really new, which is interesting because most associations are born out of a policy perspective or policy need, some legislative goal. Most associations are based out on the East Coast, mainly in DC or New York. So this is really different for PBA. PBA is and has always been the strong suit is education, connections, networking, shows. But government affairs, I still think is still working in baby steps. It's still new, even though we've been here 12 years. There was an individual, Sam Lavis, who was before me, who laid the groundwork and did amazing work, especially on the federal front with our FICA tax legislation. But when I came on board, we didn't really have any tools such as a tracking system or any database, data tracking, legislative tracking, campaigns that we were utilizing. So all of that had to be built sort of from scratch, finding out which vendors. We've switched a few lobbying teams on the DC side. I think we're on our fourth firm now and love them. To make sure that we could build up a proper foundation for a government affairs team to effectively communicate and liaison on behalf of the beauty industry.
And so 12 years, did you say?
12 years.
So by my rough math here, you've got about 25,000 hours doing this. And you have to have a tremendous amount of wisdom in those 25,000 hours. And you really educated me a bit yesterday on certain things. For example, a lot of associations are based in DC, and you've been fighting this FICA tax credit since forever. I mean, and you continue to push for it because the collective dollars are enormous for an industry here, and you just won't give up on that, will you?
I won't. They have told, I should rethink that path, but it's something that's so deserving of the professional beauty industry. The only industry that receives the FICA tax tip credit is the restaurant industry. It's existed since 1993. So Congress, at the federal level, Congress has already said, yes, this makes sense. The credit should exist. It's not an extender. This is something actually written into the code, so it doesn't expire. But they only gave it to one industry, the highest tipped industry in the US. But the beauty industry is the second highest tipped industry in the US. And a lot of times you might see salons and restaurants right next to each other. And you just think about, sometimes I'll look at them and think about the inequity in a disregard for tax fairness, and why has it taken us, I've been working on this since I came here, 12 years to get that point across. And Congress knows that we are seeking the extension of this credit out to the beauty industry. We've done many campaigns. We've had so many beauty industry advocates, from manufacturers, distributors, salon owners, independent individuals, all join campaigns. We've flown out to DC multiple times for lobby days. They're very aware of who we are. So it really starts to come down to relevance right now, and feeling like, well, why isn't our industry relevant enough to receive the extension on this credit? We're not asking for anything new. We're not creating the wheel. We have all the information. We've checked off all the boxes. The bill is score, vetted, bipartisan. We're looking for the year-end vehicle this year with this congressional session. We have support on both sides. So we're really hoping to push this over the finish line. And it's just something that's so obviously deserving of our industry. So it becomes very frustrating to me, congressional session after congressional session, that we're overlooked. So we're still working on making changes with that, and for the congressional members to see that the beauty industry is well deserving and needs this credit.
Well, don't give up on it. And I don't think anybody on this call would want you to give up on it. And, you know, I haven't done the math on it for several years here. But it's the dollars really add up for many employers, for many on this call. Over a 2, 3, 4 year period, we're talking about 6-figure type dollars here.
Yes.
And you know, it adds up. And so that's a big project for you. And now here you've got an audience primarily made up of independently owned salons, spas, schools, whatever. What do you wish they would do more of for you?
Just communicate and participate. There's a lot of times, you know, so much is based on rumor or things will come back to the Professional Beauty Association and I'll wonder, well, who said that, or where did that information come from? And we are just so accessible here at PBA. There isn't an ulterior motive to be supportive or serve as a resource or help. If anyone's had a conversation with me, you know that, like, you come to me with whatever the issue is and we try to work together to solve it. If I don't have the answer, we'll figure out the resource that does. And that's that. It's very, what you see is what you get. So communicating, participating, taking a breath for a moment. If you do see a campaign and perhaps you disagree with it, most of the times it's because not all the information has been provided. So we just need to have that one-on-one conversation to understand the why this is needed, why you should participate, why it's important, why you should get involved, and the work that we've already done behind it. We do many campaigns during COVID. We reached out to all 50 states to try to give best practices so we could slowly encourage those states to feel confident to reopen salons and get people back to work. We also have run campaigns on different issues where we serve as a resource to states to develop relationships so that when issues come up, legislative changes come up, issues with the state board come up, they know who we are, they feel comfortable with us, see us as a resource, and then we are able to be that voice on the beauty industry side. A lot of states are facing challenges, especially with licensing, with labor, and occupational licensing isn't looked upon too favorably among many, I guess we'll call them red states, where they're really looking to streamline. But the issue there is that they're seeing state organizations, the Institute for Justice or other types of groups as the resource for what should be licensed, what type of education should be included, and they're not going to the specific industry. And we work all the time to change this. The good news is I can finally say, after being here for 12 years, states are calling us now and looking and seeing us as a resource. We do connect people in that state with whomever is reaching out to receive help. We know that the constituents, the people on the ground in that area are much better than us, but we do try to provide information, data, talking points, written testimony, anything we can to be supportive in that path for that process. And so we encourage people to get engaged. My team partner, Katie Raposa, manages all advocacy and works hand in hand, really individualized with many of our beauty industry advocates to help them get their points across and develop relationships with their state and federal elected officials.
How important is data, for example, the data in the compensation project for our cause for our industry to have a different level of respect?
It is the most important factor.
Wait a minute, did you just say the most important factor? It's
the most important factor.
Okay.
The beauty industry, from non-beauty industry individuals, take it a step further to elected officials who are really being bombarded with all different topics. So they are not an expert in any single area. Having to read information, having to learn information. Are they open and minded enough to learn information? We all know that there's a perception, a stigma that sometimes is unfavorable to those outside of the beauty industry of what the beauty industry truly is. Why did you make that career choice? How much money did you make? How much did you pay for going to a cosmetology program? Is it sustainable? Is it legitimate? Or is this just a part-time hobby? Do you pay your taxes? How do we know you pay your taxes? So when we are working with elected officials, both at the state and federal, We have to have data. We have to show that the beauty industry is a legitimate career choice that is sustainable, that's long-term, that is much more beyond the chair. If you choose to do that, that's wonderful and amazing. But there are many people that have saved money, become a salon owner, developed product, gone on to be an educator. There's so many other directions you can go with this career field. But a lot of times elected officials have zero interest in that. They want to know facts, figures, data. They want the business side only of the industry, not everything else. And just listening to you with the previous speaker, and love the comments about human capital. That's something that's really missing in the conversation. So if I cannot have data and information, employment figures, demographics to show that, look, we're not cutting anyone out from being involved in the industry. These are jobs that can't be outsourced. Obviously, they have to stay here for you to work with someone within the beauty industry. How much an impact the beauty industry makes within a community and to a state. We break that down with our state demographics that we have to be able to show. And it allows us to push back on a lot of the negativity and stigma about the beauty industry, so we can get past the fact that, yes, I'm talking about the beauty industry, but I am also talking about a legitimate career choice, a business that stays in the community and generates this amount of dollars and employs this many individuals from all walks of life. So if I don't have the data, I'm just up there sharing my opinion. And although I enjoy my opinion, it doesn't matter to a whole lot of people what my personal opinion may be. I need to have the information to back that up, to either support or to distract from legislation that could be potentially dangerous to the industry.
Well, it didn't take me long after getting caught up with you. Of course, I've known you for years, but you know, we spoke a little bit ago about the compensation study. I asked you to look at our methodology, and you were gracious to spend time with me. It didn't take me long to realize that you're like an encyclopedia when it comes to this, and so I'm thrilled that you're part of our think tank of really smart people that are going to help us, really, once the data comes in, craft the message and the story. Because I knew about negative perception, but reading it's very different. I just heard it kind of in the air, but this compensation set, I'm reading this stuff, I'm like, really? I mean, this stuff is actually in print by organizations that claim to be reputable.
Yes, I have one right here, Institute for Justice. Not sure if you can see that, entitled Beauty School Debt and Dropouts. These are things that are being passed out on tables in conferences that I attend. The last conference I attend with the Council of State Governments had an entire table of all these booklets and materials printed. The entire table was aimed at the beauty industry, not one or two documents, the whole table. So I find this very interesting. They are at all government affairs, legislative conferences, because that's where elected officials are. So it's important to have representation from the beauty industry there as well to push back on those arguments, because we can push back on those arguments, but the more data, the better.
Yeah, I mean, I'm blown away by the amount of that information. You said even a whole table of it, and a lot of the publications are really directed at the school industry and gainful employment, because there's some policy making going on here. And the compensation study was really never initiated. Our compensation study was never initiated because of anything related with the schools. But in the data and research that goes into the arguments related to school, doesn't just hurt the schools, it hurts the small businesses that employ. It hurts small businesses, which at the same time the government is trying to pump up and create jobs. So that's why in the study we really focused on independent community-owned businesses that employ people. One of the things that I found fascinating about you is you don't just sit in Arizona and do Zoom meetings. I mean, you've literally gone and sat down with people at the Bureau of Labor Statistics. And
Yes, I have any opportunity I can to meet with individuals that shape the occupational outlook handbook from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. I did that a few years ago. I've also flown out to Minnesota and sat down and met with the legal team at Institute for Justice, who authors many of these guidelines. We've flown out to different states to support and help for testimony and hearings. But yes, so I was very curious to learn, how do they develop the information that every one of us and all the elected officials can look up on the Bureau of Labor Statistics? The Occupational Outlook Handbook is for every career field. So you just could plug in if you're a barber or cosmetologist or esthetician. It does break it down and has quite a bit of data. But I was just curious, how does this work? How do they get that information? Where does it come from? No, we are invited every couple of years when they update this information on just the side of definitions and descriptions to provide information to the analysts that work on that. But I really was curious on the numbers. How do they come up with the numbers? So I did schedule a meeting with their team, and while in DC, met with their team and received a whole presentation. It was quite nice to break things down, but I left very shocked and a little bit disappointed because I was expecting this really glamorous, sophisticated way of collecting data. I made the incorrect assumption that because it's a federal agency, it must somehow connect through their computer systems with the IRS, and that's how they were collecting this data, only to find out that that's not what they do at all. What they do, if we were to do the same thing, would look quite biased, but because they're not with the industry, I guess it's acceptable. But it really is survey data, making calls, looking at what employment-based establishments would pay on workman comps, not the claims, but what they would pay in for workman comp. So right there, that tells you it left out a huge chunk of the industry because they don't do anything with independents. But it wasn't as in-depth as I thought it would be, considering those numbers are what determine what happens with the schools, what happens with gainful employment, what happens, it shapes the perception of the industry to show what you would work. I mean, someone that's looking to come into the industry may pull that up and think, whoa, I don't want to choose that field because that's really low compensation. So this year, when we were invited by the analysts again to provide information, again, just on the definition side and to update their pages on what's changed within the industry and where things are licensed, maybe if licensing had changed, to give them that type of information, which we're happy to do because once again, we're establishing a relationship. We did ask if we could, at a later date, come back and discuss further the numbers. They're really cautious about that, but I just truly believe that if we can establish a relationship that we've done so far on this piece, we can do that again for the numbers piece and be able to open the discussion to talk about how can we begin to serve as a resource to adjust those numbers to something a little bit closer to what we know is happening.
Yeah. So what drives you, Myra? Because you probably took this job and it was like, it's a job, but now 12 years later, have you, what's your passion as it relates to what you do?
I have always had a passion for government. My strong suit, I guess, probably since junior high was history classes and civic classes. And I used to sign people up to vote at my cousin's baseball games and soccer games before I could even vote myself. And I loved volunteering. I loved working on campaigns. There was just something about it that was attractive to me. Because sometimes I joke, well, I've done this since before I graduated college, so I've done this all my life. So my resume might be a little just one-sided in terms of what I do with government affairs. Because I've worked on the legislative and policy side, my perspective on how legislation works, how policy works, there's only so many years I think I would have followed in those footsteps. It's very difficult to manage when so many topics are coming into an elected official. So it's a big competition to be relevant, to stay relevant, to catch the eye of an elected official. But when I had the opportunity to work on the association side, you're right. My first couple months here, I thought, whoa, whoa, we need more staff. We need more systems in place. I had no idea, not coming from the beauty industry, the levels and layers and intricacies for business owners, for licensed beauty professionals, the stresses placed on manufacturers from the cradle to grave concept, the chemical use, the OSHA standards. It was sort of, everything was coming at the beauty industry at once. And I thought, how does everyone function and manage this? And oh, by the way, it's different in all 50 states. Wow. You know, I mean, I just would sit on my couch and my mind would want to explode about how are we supposed to manage this and serve as a liaison and get everyone's voice out there, because it's needed, this perspective. So I just really grew to love my job. The work I do is consistent with the topics and the issues, and the people are constantly changing. Every session it's changing. Who we're working with is changing. Just like in the beauty industry, more and more issues might pop up, new techniques, new products. But along with that becomes new regulations. What is the FDA approving in terms of color additives? Big changes there last year. So everything is constantly changing. And I just grew to really love the passion behind the industry. And it is a passionate industry. And when we can assemble and get a message across, I'm always I feel so rewarded to see the results, see everyone come together. We're not talking about if you're a school owner, we're not talking about if you're a manufacturer. Everyone came together because they agreed about this one particular issue, and they decided to work together and build that up, and it does make a difference. And so I really just enjoy that work. And sometimes it is what motivates me is frustration. Frustration to see in the middle of COVID, one state introduce a deregulation bill. No one's thinking about that right now. It's in the middle of COVID. These businesses are shut down. Give me a break. Frustration being told in DC that our industry is not relevant. You don't have a PAC. Yes, you've checked all the boxes. What's the big thing you're missing? Frustration to feel like other individuals may feel that this career choice isn't valid because they don't see value in it. How insulting is that? That angers me. So I know I'm not a licensed beauty professional, but that angers me. And representing the beauty industry, that just does not settle with me. And I enjoy those moments where I can push back when I hear those types of messaging come through. I actually had met with someone with the state recently who told me an elected official had mentioned in a committee hearing at the end that they could never get that hour of their life back, meaning the whole conversation surrounding that topic with the beauty industry was irrelevant. So that type of frustration does help fuel me to want to educate and explain. Just because you don't understand a career path and everything that encompasses that career path for a multi-billion-dollar business industry in the United States, doesn't mean it's unworthy of your time or attention or education or licensing or complaint process through the board or inspections or funding or a tax credit we've been working on for 12 years. So we have to keep the conversation going. We have to push back with our voices, but we sure do need that data.
Yeah.
So we have to participate and build relationships, and it takes a long time to do that. Like I said, I've been here 12 years, and we're just now, over the past 1 or 2 years, being seen as a resource by many states and being called to participate, called for our opinion, exchanging information. And that's a great feeling, but it takes a long time, and it takes being patient and being calm and choosing our words and what we choose to represent ourselves with carefully. And it's a little bit of figuring out how to play their game to make sure that we're included.
Myra, it's a delight to have you with us, and you're a champion. There's a question. I'm going to have you put this into the chat. what is the best way we can get involved and help you. So maybe you could do that in the chat. We are going to start moving towards, I'm going to see who's on the call today, but great guest. Thank you. And thank you for also being part of the think tank, because we need your guidance in order to make the kind of study that is needed for all of us. So you're a hero.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity just to share a little bit about what we're doing here at PBA, and appreciate what you're doing and shedding a light on so many diverse topics that all are relevant to the beauty industry. So thank you so much.
All right, watch for your $1 million light bulb and your admission into the Brain Trust. Myra, thanks again. Let's give her a virtual round of applause. What a great couple guests here. So who's with us today? We got a good group today. Vanessa and Tracy and Todd and Terry and Tanya and Sue and Santana and Roman and Nina and Nicole, Michael, Melissa, Megan, Mark, Marie, Linnell, Louisa, Leslie, Con, Kevin, Kelly, Kate, Jean, Joe, Jared, Jan, Jackie, Heather, Ginger, Dawn, Connie, Christine, Cheyenne, Casey, Kathy, Candace, Andrew, Amanda, Allison, and someone else I don't know the first name of. But anyway, it is great to have you all join us today. Let me see, I've got a couple other things before I wrap up. I think we're on next week. I might need a little help in the chat there, but I do believe that we are on next. Yes, we are on next week. And so hopefully Michelle or someone will put that in the chat. Financial wellness, just a couple of things. Yes, you just heard why the study is so important. So please don't wait to get your data submitted, and data submission is open. The first step is to go to a web page, fill out the contact information that'll send a confidentiality agreement. We build a portal, you submit your data, and then in a couple of weeks, there'll be a survey to answer. It doesn't take much time, but we need you for that. Also, Candace Gliata joined us today. She's up early here too. She's the leader of the Money SBO workshop here in Minnesota, coming up very shortly. Then, of course, we have Money Pro to bring financial wellness to your team and to also help them understand their paychecks, as well as the work we do with students. So Lightheart Sanders, the CPAs are one of the sponsors for the roundtable. I have not had a chance to read any of the chats, but I want to thank you for joining us today. I got 52 minutes after the hour, so we'll call this a wrap. Special thanks again to Myra and Carrie for joining us today. Also, we've got Money SBO coming up just in a number of weeks here. To give a sneak peek on this, we do have capacity still for this event. I will also be part of this. Candace will be leading it, and I'll be providing commentary throughout the session. We'll work together collaboratively, but Candace has just an amazing way to make this information approachable from a current owner who has the credibility of high profitability, amazing financial management. So it's a great opportunity, especially if you have members of your leadership team that need to learn about the finance function. So it's not just for owners, it's also for managers. And then, of course, we have Money Pro, which is our financial wellness program. I saw Jason Craven was going to join us today. I don't know if he's with us, but I saw him sign up, and I love seeing this picture of the Jill Craven team really getting into learning about personal finances and making it interesting and fun. So this is our newest product, financial wellness. It is for employers to bring into their team as an employee benefit, one that will also educate them and take away some of the confusion that sometimes exists between employers and employees regarding understanding paychecks. Also, a sneak peek at a new tool. This isn't even out yet, but I'm just giving you a quick sneak peek. We have one of our signature tools has just been created here just for Money Pro. I'm probably not even supposed to show this to you, but not only will it help you with weekly tracking, so you can see your personal money metrics moving, but it also will track behavior and activities and create streaks towards financial success. And then, of course, we have our student program, which we're thrilled to be in multiple campuses. Carrie is actually in that universe today. And in that money course for students, we lean very heavily on a very simple and visual tool, many of your favorite tool, the 9Grid. Also 2 to 10 registration is open. You must qualify for that. It's coming up in October before you know it. And those are some of the announcements I have for you. So anyway, remember to prosper, manage your ATM, your attention, time, and money. It's not lost on us that your precious attention and time is being spent with us today. So thank you for joining us. All right. Past recordings are on YouTube. And we also welcome to this conversation, not just salons and spas, but also schools. I see my friend Michael's on here today. I'm sure we got some other from the school industry. So that's awesome. All the best, everybody. Have a great week. And thanks for joining us. Bye.